global education observances, and that sadly have significant relevance for us as Nigerians. The first International Day for Literacy observed on the 8th of September every year, which is just yesterday. And the second International Day to Protect Education, which is the day before yesterday, rather, the first one, from attack observed on the 9th of September every year. And both are significant because, on the one hand, the Minister of Education acknowledges that over 60 million Nigerians are unable to read and write. And alongside this, thousands of students, especially those in the northeastern part of the country, have been abducted, and over 1 million school-age children displaced. So join us on Public Square today. We have the United Nations Children's Fund in Nigeria. Judith Giwa Amu is the Education Officer, UNICEF in Nigeria. She's National Coordinator Education in Emergencies Working Group. It's a pleasure to have you join us, Judith. Interestingly, brilliant.
It's also my pleasure to be with you.
Great. UNICEF has been working globally for 75 years on behalf of the world's children. Another discussion with Judith Giwa. We will have Rotimi come in, and we'll do some big picture analysis and do some compare and contrast with interesting countries like Afghanistan. It may interest you to know there could be things to learn from that one. And we'll have you join us in the square also too. So very warm welcome to you, Judith Giwa Amu.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. And we're streaming this live. It's on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Nigeria Info FM is the place to go to on Facebook as well as YouTube to follow this interview live. Now, UNICEF has underlined that 1 in every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is in Nigeria. What kind of impact do you think this will have on their future and the future of the country if this problem is not resolved urgently, Judith?
We know that a nation is as good as the power of its educated workforce. So, and we also know that the youth are actually they're the future of Nigeria. And we also know that education is the bedrock of development. The idea of education is for children and youth to, acquire knowledge and skills and be able to utilize them meaningfully to contribute to the social economic development of the nation. Now, when you have an illiterate population, because you have over 10.5 children out of school, then no meaningful national development can happen. So it actually portends a very, very dull, very, very drastic future for us.
And indeed, a real drastic future. If we think about Nigeria's median age, which currently stands at 18, and we do the projections, it spells doom, to say the least. But Judith, this week we also had a World Literacy Day. And in recent years, the Minister of Education, Adamu, has pointed out that at least 60 million Nigerians, interestingly, are also unable to read or write. How does literacy in particular impact on parents and in turn the children's development, health, and their well-being?
Okay, so when a child cannot read or write, the child loses out on so many things. I give an example. A child that cannot read cannot even know the correct dosage of medication and can even harm himself. A child that cannot read or cannot, because we talk a lot about literacy, but it's actually literacy and numeracy. And then we also talk about financial education. So the importance of reading and writing is so critical because a child needs to read to be able to be at par with its peers in other parts of the nation. We're talking of digital technology and all that. When a child cannot even, go past the foundational literacy and skills requirement, then the child cannot even advance. The child cannot even aspire to, really put his potentials to use. We know that children are a source of, great potentials, innovation. But when a child cannot even read or write, he cannot even communicate his needs. The child even I don't even want to, I want to look at it even from the self-esteem perspective.
Right.
When he sees his contemporaries, being able to hold conversations very confidently, very comfortably, that child is already, missing out. And then for the child to actually make it in the society,
right,
there's no way he can do that without reading and writing. He won't go so far. He won't even be able to actualize his full potentials.
Absolutely. We'll not be able to achieve full potentials. In case you just joined the conversation, today it's an omnibus of conversation we're having with United Nations Children's Fund in Nigeria here. Judith Giwamu is the focal point for education here with UNICEF Nigeria. If you got questions, comments on these two big commemorations, observances which have happened this week, one with Literacy Day and the other with stopping the attacks on education in the country, you can send those comments on WhatsApp 0809 597 5805. Again, 0809 597 5805. And Judy, just like we pointed out earlier on, that yesterday was International Day to End Attacks on Education, and UNICEF, your country rep, Peter Hawkins, had put out a statement earlier on saying that we need to put an end to attacks on schools and students. In the global experience of UNICEF over the past 75 years, you've been working with the world's children. What do you think needs to be done to make schools safer?
So there's, making schools safer is actually a multi-sectoral approach. It's not just one sector that is involved.
Right.
And again, it's also something that needs to involve the whole society. So we're looking at schools. By virtue of their location, schools are within communities. Communities are the immediate gatekeeper. They are in the closest proximity to the school. So they are the ones with whom the children are, even before any security can come from the capital city.
Right.
So we need to be able to leverage on this partnership with communities, bearing in mind that they are the owners of the school. But basically, we need to be able to build their capacity to know, because we have what you call community-based measures. There are some things that the community can do. The community is the custodian of what we call the early warning system. Early warning systems are things that are put in place to ensure that there's enough time, for something to be done to ensure that the impact of the threat can be totally prevented or can be mitigated. So we are talking of early warning systems, we are talking of functional communication systems.
Right.
We are talking of risk assessment. Every school needs to have its risk profile. What do I mean by that? A risk profile will show a school to be a high risk, and high risk could be a school that is very far away,
right,
that, will take like 1 hour for any support, any help to reach that school in the event of an attack. And then we also, so the risk profile is generated from a risk analysis.
Right.
The risk analysis shows the issues, shows the gaps that need to be addressed to make the school and the children in the school less vulnerable to attack. So for instance, a risk profile will show a school and, like this school does not have a perimeter fencing. So it's porous because the walls act as the immediate barrier. We're not saying, I know even in the recent spate of abductions, we've seen where these abductors go through the wall. But at least as an immediate barrier, the walls are there. Then what are the entrance exits? How many entrances, how many exits? The staff, the security at the gate,
right,
has a background check been done? The teachers in the school, do they even know what to do? The children, sometimes even confusion and panic. People die from confusion and panic. You remember in Afghanistan, because of the panic, they were like, trying to board the plane, and some died. They would probably not have, lost their lives if they had, so that panic, is something that needs to be avoided. If the children are armed with what we call disaster risk reduction knowledge,
right,
that knowledge is, it works to prevent or reduce impact of any effects of an attack on education. So the children need to have comprehensive school safety plans that are prepared participatorily with them. They need to know what is in the plan. They need to know, identify muster points, where they can, what they need to do in the event of an attack. And these are things that they need to do in form of like exercises, simulations, and drills that will be reviewed, revised, and okay, what went wrong? What didn't we do very well? The idea of this is that practice. You're not waiting whether it comes. Just in case it comes, you know what to do.
Absolutely.
So that is one of the ways we talk of, school-based interventions. So that is where that comes in. But by and large, we need to have, like, at the state levels, we need to have what you call like a coordination structure, where under which is domiciled safe school networks. The idea of safe school networks is that schools in one part of the state can benefit from what has happened, so that lessons get learned, best practices can be, scaled up to also ensure that the other parts of every state can also, be protected, so that the children are able to come to a safe and conducive learning environment, which is a requisite for learning to happen.
Absolutely, because I'm just thinking, when you think about the attacks that have happened in the Northeast and Northwest, and you sort of imagine if those children don't have access to the things you talk about, puts them in a dangerous place all through while they're in school. I'm going to read out some information here. This is an interview which happened with Premium Times, which is an online media, yesterday. The chief of the Maiduguri field office in Borno State, Fong Nguyen, stated that 1,400 schools were damaged and more than 1 million children forced out of school. And then 2,295 teachers were killed between 2009 and 2020, which is just last year. In the experience of UNICEF globally, what would you say is the sort of investment that needs to be done to deal with the damage that's happened, especially in the Northeast, which has taken the bulk of attacks in this more than a decade years of terror we've experienced in the country?
Okay, so there are several things that need to be done. First of all, we talk of having emergency sensitive education sector plans. The idea of these plans is that ahead of time, every year, during the annual budget, some funds are set aside. So that if it comes, you don't start grappling with, there's been no appropriation and all that. So that is one thing. And it actually filters down beyond the state education sector plans to the local government education sector plans. The local government education authorities are responsible for education in the communities where the bulk of the schools are. So the planning for this, it's something that we need to, plan for over time. And I want to mention that there are some interventions in place with even UNICEF, the Global Partnership for Education, looking at building capacities of education functionaries. We're not even talking of only for education functionaries, because we know that, like I said, it's multi-sectoral. The protection sector, health, we had COVID. COVID is also, it's under emergencies. Water, sanitation, and hygiene. And then we also need security sector. So these sectors need to all be part of this capacity building, awareness creation, because they need to know the value of what their roles and responsibilities specify. So basically, these educational functionaries, they need to be able to, have capacities to manage, plan and manage immediate and future shocks, future emergencies. So if they are able to do that, they can ensure that ahead of time, some of these things are prepared for, some of them are, planning is done for them, so they are not taken unawares. So I think that is very critical, education sector planning. Then also we know that the education is on the concurrent list. So that means the state government determines what it prioritizes.
Right.
So the onus is for the state governor to actually, recognize the kind of risk profile, the kind of issues, that one that can expose the education, sector. So when we say education under attack, we're talking of learners, we're talking of teachers, non-teaching personnel, and we're talking of educational assets. We know what state budgets are saying, and even though in the recent high level meeting that was held in Abuja, I think on the 20th of April, where we had the governors from the Governors Forum, we had the chairman, we had ministers led by the Minister of Finance, we had the education sector led by the Chief of Defense Staff, the police, the IG, we had the private sector, and of course we had the diplomatic community, including UNICEF and other organizations and donors.
Right.
And, in that particular forum, it was clear that the state governors have to take a lead. Of course, it would start from the national, because the overarching national school safety and security plan will be the source from which the state level should feed into, or feed from, And so if the governor is able to actually take that, responsibility and say, look, these children, they have a right to education.
Right.
I am the primary, the main duty bearer, and I'm responsible to support these children to actualize their right to education under the Nigerian Child Rights Act 2003, under the United Nations Convention for the Rights of the Child, Article 28 and 29. It is their right. So how do we play our roles to ensure that they are able to assess their rights and achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 4, which is looking at education, inclusivity of education, is looking at quality education, equitable education for lifelong learning. So this, for me, is the assignment that the governor should be looking at, and also ensure that every key stakeholder that has something to contribute as a partner is brought on board, including the private sector.
Right, and you're going to expatiate on that a little more, Judith Giwa. In case you just joined in on Public Square 99.3 Nigeria Info, we have a special. We've rammed two big topics this week into one, looking at the future of education in the country. One, with the attack on schools and education system, and we read all the figures that happened in just Borno State, the one for the Northwest, I'm sure. By next year, we'll have a clearer picture, but I do let you know that things are really getting out of hand, especially also into the northern western part of the country. Judith Giwa is Education Officer, UNICEF Nigeria, National Coordinator Education on Emergencies Working Group. So why I said you're going to expatiate a little more on this one is you've talked about state governments. Would want you to do something for us. We have our own assignment here in 99.3 Nigeria Info. The Public Square recently launched the campaign for the future of 43% of Nigerians under the age of 15. Incidentally, that's about 90 million children. And you've talked about child rights, protection and development. What do you think the local government, states, again, and federal government should do together to help improve the prospects of the Nigerian child?
Well, we know that I'm looking at the prospects of the Nigerian child with the foundation being education. In fact, the Sustainable Development Goal 4 is the pivot of all the other ones, because it takes a learned and educated female to go to school, to be able to grow up, support her family, to be able to have a very safe pregnancy through access to quality prenatal, postnatal services, to be able to bring forth her baby safely, and for that child to be able to be free from immunization. Free from childhood diseases through timely immunization. So the role of education in ensuring that the children are able to grow up with knowledge and skills and compete with their peers and also contribute to the development of the nation comes from what the state, the local government, and even the community are able to do.
Sorry to interrupt you, Judith, but we'll come back to share some of your experiences, about what you've seen on the field. While we go for this quick break on 99.3 Nigeria Info. When we come back, Judith Giwa will put finishing touches to many of the points she's raised on what the state, local, and federal government should be doing in improving the prospect of the Nigerian child. Please stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is The Public Square.
All right, welcome back. It's 4:30, 26 minutes going to 5, and I am Aghogho Oboh, back to the Public Square. And we're still with Judith Giwa Amu, Education Officer, United Nations Children Fund, National Coordinator Education in Emergencies Working Group. I don't know what the weather is like over in Abuja, but my gizmo tells me it's raining there too. It may be... It started raining. I think I sent down the rain to Abuja. I must begin work as the rainmaker. All right. Before we go off with you, Judith Giwa Amu, I'm sure that you want to put finishing touches to what you had to say about what the state, federal, and local governments should be doing to improve the prospects of the Nigerian child.
Yes, quality, I want to just give a little background. Quality education can happen when a child is in an environment that is conducive and safe. Then the child can concentrate. The child has, education in a classroom that is not destroyed, that has the requisite teaching and learning materials, and also that teachers, because teachers are a very, very underlining factor. A child's education is as good as the education of the teacher. So if the teacher is good, the child will be good. If the teacher has been attacked and is going through some psychosocial challenges, the teacher cannot give his best. The child also, the concentration span of the child would be very, very little, because the slightest thing, because of probably maybe a past experience, the child will not be able to, comfortably learn. So in terms of what the states and the local governments can do is to support as much as possible the school environment, the school system, so that it can be what I would call resilient. They need to build resilience in the school through training the teachers, so that they have capacity, they are not as vulnerable, and they are able to recover. Because that is another thing that sometimes might get lost. The fact that some of the abductees are returning. Every day I wonder at their psyche. I wonder at their social emotional well-being, because some of those children, if we're not careful, are mad for life. They have gone through some kind of toxic experience that without the right mental health and psychosocial support services from counselors, or for the very severely affected ones to be able to be referred to appropriate health authorities, it's going to be a tough one. Some children might not even recover. And we're already dealing with over 10.5 million children out of school. So that is why you see some children, if you're not careful, they look at education and look at schools as areas, zones of danger. These are schools that we have been saying that schools are protective, because sometimes you have this sexual gender-based violence and it's more at home, and some of the perpetrators are at home. So school is protection for some children. When they come to school, they are out of, they are out of the hands of some of these perpetrators who are relatives. So all this, it's like a circle. A lot of things affect a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you want children that have knowledge, children that you can say are literate. They have foundational literacy and numeracy skills. they have life skills, they're able to make decisions that affect their lives. They can decide to say, okay, we want to go with education, and that's the way to go. And then they are supported. Right. They're supported by the duty bearers. So the local government authorities, the state authorities, right. and even at the national level. Because we know that there are 104 unity colleges, the federal government colleges, right. they are also under Federal Ministry of Education. Right. So at the national level, those are the schools, and they have similar concerns.
Absolutely. We'll have to leave it at that, but thank you very much. It's been great speaking with you, Judith Giwa-Amu, Education Officer, United Nations Children's Fund in Nigeria, the National Coordinator, Education in Nigeria, Emergencies Working Group. Keep doing the good work you do.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been great being on your show. Thank you. Absolutely.
And we'll keep touching bases with UNICEF and helping us understand better how to overcome the educational challenges we face. Do have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Right. All right. So that's just one half of the show. We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, Rotimi is going to join us. When Rotimi joins in, we will have a big picture discussion. Compare and contrast and see just where we are on this education summit in the public square. 99.3 Nigeria Info.